I'm 78 years old now, and most mornings I wake up surprised I'm still here. At the end of this video, I'm sharing something I wish someone had told me years ago. It cost me time, pain, and experience to learn. Don't skip this last message matters.
Not in a dramatic way, just a quiet noticing, like finding an old coat still hanging where you left it decades ago. The house is too quiet. That's usually the first thing I notice. Then my joints remind me I'm still alive, and the day begins. There's a question I didn't hear until very late in my life. When I finally did, it rearranged everything I thought I knew. Not because it was clever, not because it was profound, but because it landed when there wasn't much time left to answer it properly. I think about that a lot now. Time, how I treated it like something that would always keep refilling itself. When you're young, time feels like a wide road with no end. You don't rush because why would you? There's plenty ahead. I lived most of my life like that, careful, responsible, always planning for later. I was good at later. I grew up the kind of boy who didn't cause trouble. My father worked 6 days a week and came home tired and quiet. My mother worried about money even when we had enough. I learned early that being steady mattered more than being loud. So I became steady. I married at 26. Good woman, kind, patient. The kind of person who remembered birthdays and noticed when you were quiet for too long. We built a life that looked right from the outside. House, kids, yard I never quite kept up with. I worked a lot, not because I loved the work, but because it needed doing. That's what I told myself. There was always something due, something unfinished, something that couldn't wait. And the people I loved learned to wait instead. I used to think that was just how adulthood worked.
If 40 years of work on, before we move ahead, I want to tell you something important. Subscribe to the channel. The team behind this channel puts real effort into sharing real stories from real people to help improve your life.
The years went by without much noise. No big disasters, no great scandals, just days stacked on top of each other. I missed a lot of dinners. I was tired at night. I told myself I'd be more present once things slowed down. They never really did. My children grew up in pieces I didn't fully witness. I was there, technically. I drove them places, paid for things, fixed what broke. But I didn't always sit long enough to hear what they were actually saying. I thought there would be time for that later when they were older. Later came, and they didn't need to talk the same way anymore. My wife and I became efficient together. We ran the household well. We discussed logistics more than feelings. It wasn't unhappy, just thin, like soup stretched with too much water. I noticed it sometimes, usually late at night, but I didn't know what to do with the feeling, so I ignored it. That was my talent, ignoring small discomforts. I told myself that was maturity. You don't dwell, you keep going. You provide, you endure. Looking back, I can see how many quiet invitations I declined without realizing it. A hand on my arm that I brushed past. A question asked twice. A silence that wanted company. None of it seemed urgent at the time. Urgency came later. I retired at 65. People congratulated me, asked what I'd do with all my free time. I laughed and said I'd figure it out. I thought rest would feel earned. Instead, it felt unfamiliar. Without the job, I wasn't sure where to put myself. The days were long. My wife had her routines. The kids had their own lives by then. I tried hobbies, fixed things that didn't need fixing, watched more television than I ever had before. We talked less, my wife and I, not out of anger, just because there was nothing scheduled that required discussion. The silence grew heavier. I didn't know how to step into it. Then she got sick. It wasn't sudden. It was the kind of illness that creeps in politely, giving you time to adjust while quietly taking things away. Doctor visits, new medications, days when she was tired for no clear reason. I told myself we'd manage it like we managed everything else. I stayed practical, organized, helpful. I didn't realize how scared I was until much later. She declined slowly, and I stayed busy, cooking, cleaning, coordinating. I was good at tasks, less good at sitting with her when she cried for reasons she couldn't explain. One afternoon, near the end, she asked me something. We were sitting at the kitchen table, the same table we'd eaten at for over 40 years. The light was coming in just right, dust floating in the air like it always had. She looked smaller somehow. She asked, "Were you happy?" It wasn't an accusation. It wasn't dramatic. Just a question, spoken gently, like she was genuinely curious. I didn't answer right away. I said something practical instead, asked if she needed water. She smiled at me, tired but patient. She had always been patient with me. Later that night, after she'd gone to sleep, I sat alone and let the question come back. "Were you happy?" I realized I didn't know how to answer it, not honestly. I had been content at times, proud sometimes, relieved often. But happy? In the way that fills you instead of just keeping you going? I wasn't sure. She died a few months later. The house changed after that, not just because she was gone, but because everything we'd been putting off suddenly had no place to land. All the conversations we assumed we'd have, all the time we thought we'd use differently. It sat with me, unused. After the funeral, people checked in. Then they went back to their lives. That's how it works. I don't blame them. Life keeps moving for the living. The days became very quiet. It was during one of those quiet days, sitting alone in the living room, that the question returned. Not the one she asked, Another one, simpler, sharper. If this doesn't change, is this how you want to live the rest of your life? I don't know where it came from. It wasn't from a book or a sermon or a wise friend. It just appeared, fully formed, and wouldn't leave me alone. If this doesn't change. I realized how often I'd lived assuming something would change on its own, that circumstances would shift, that time would open up, that feelings would resolve themselves if ignored long enough. But now there wasn't much time left to be careless with. That question didn't inspire me. It didn't energize me. It scared me. Because the honest answer was no. No, I didn't want the rest of my life to look like this. Quiet, guarded, safe, and empty. No, I didn't want to keep postponing things that mattered until they became impossible. I couldn't fix the past. That was clear. I couldn't go back and be a different husband, a more attentive father, a braver man. Those versions were gone, but the question wasn't asking about the past. It was asking about what I was actively choosing now, through inaction if nothing else. So I started small, uncomfortably small. I called my children more, even when I didn't have a reason. Sometimes the conversations were awkward, sometimes brief, but they happened. I told them things I should have said years earlier, not all at once, just pieces. I let myself feel lonely instead of pretending I was fine. That was harder than it sounds. Loneliness doesn't like to be acknowledged. It gets louder when you look at it directly. I stopped filling every silence with noise. I sat with my thoughts. Some of them weren't pleasant. Regret has a way of lining up patiently when you finally give it space. I didn't reinvent myself. I didn't suddenly become expressive or bold. I was still me, an old man with habits set deep. But I began answering that question honestly each day. If this doesn't change, is this how you want to live? Sometimes the answer was yes, sometimes no. But I asked it anyway. What I learned, too late but still useful, is that life isn't usually ruined by one bad decision. It's shaped by thousands of small delays, conversations you don't have, feelings you don't name, days you trade away assuming there will be more. There usually aren't. I don't beat myself up anymore. There's no point. I did what I knew how to do at the time. I just wish I'd asked that question sooner, when there was more room to respond to it fully. Now at 78, my world is smaller. My body is slower. My future is short enough to see the edges, but it's clearer. I see now that presence was always the thing I was postponing, and presence doesn't accumulate interest. You can't catch up on it later. If you're listening to this and it stirred something uncomfortable, I won't tell you what to do with that. I'm not qualified. I waited too long to pretend I know better. I'll just tell you the question, the way it came to me. If this doesn't change, is this how you want to live the rest of your life? You don't have to answer it out loud. Just don't ignore it for decades like I did. I'm learning to live with the answers I have now. Some days are heavy, some are quietly good. That's enough. At this age, acceptance isn't giving up. It's finally seeing things as they are, without insisting they be different. The house is still quiet in the mornings, but I'm quieter too, in a better way. Less rushing, less pretending. I don't have many years left. I know that, but I'm here for the ones I do have. And that finally feels honest.
Life isn't undone by one big mistake, but by many small delays. We put off presence, honesty, and connection, trusting there will be time later. Often there isn't. Responsibility can build a life that works, but doesn't feel lived. The question that matters, it isn't what you missed, but what you're choosing. Because time doesn't refill itself. Presence can't be recovered later.